Mr. Mayor. A lot of people are very skeptical about your race for governor. You're a big city mayor from Atlanta. That's not usually the kind of governor we elect in the state. Why do you think the people of Georgia are going to vote for you to be their governor?
Well, I hope the people of Georgia will vote for me because they believe that I can really lead this state into the 21st century. Georgia's been tagging along at the rear a long time in education, economically. It's time for Georgia to move to the front. And I've had the kind of experiences at the national level and at the international level that lets me believe that working with Georgians, I can help Georgia move to the head of the pack.
What do you have to offer the state in terms of experience? You run a city, but we're looking for a governor. And what do you have to offer in terms of what's your agenda if you want to be governor, if you are elected governor? What do you want to do?
Well, I want to make Georgia number one. I want to make Georgia number one in education. I want to make Georgia number one in economic development. I want to make Georgia number one in quality of life. And I want to make Georgia number one in terms of safety and security for all of our citizens. And I think that having run a city, which is really $1.2 billion budget, over 7,000 employees, 95% of economic development in the state of Georgia over the last 8 years came from the metropolitan Atlanta area. I would like to extend that economic development to the rest of the citizens of Georgia.
Now, a lot of people say that perhaps for the business community, it looks good on paper, but the fact is there's a lot of poverty, a lot of low income, a lot of homelessness in Atlanta. Has your economic development in Atlanta really benefited everyone?
I think that Atlanta has benefited every citizen that has lived there for a lifetime. We do have people coming into our city every day, and naturally we can't benefit them. But for those who were born in Atlanta, who have gone through our public schools, 70% of our public school graduates are going on to college. That's hard to find in most places. Every one of those is going to be assured of a job and assured of a future as a tax-paying citizen of this great state. We have generated 685,000 new jobs over the last 6 years. Those are all kinds of jobs. Those are high-tech jobs. Those are service industry jobs. The people who work in our hotels, the people who take care of McDonald's. At every level, there has been job opportunity. And so much of a shortage of good workers is that McDonald's has been offering $5.50, $6 an hour to get workers. So that's not, I mean, that's putting it there for everybody to get. But one thing I've learned about poverty, and that is that you cannot get out of poverty without education. And tragically, our basketball players and football players, the young athletes who get these big contracts because of their athletic abilities, but who slip through school without really getting an education, most of them end up broke. Whereas people who start out with a solid education, making a lot less money, can usually, with education, build themselves a solid future in our state.
Okay, we'll give you the progress and prosperity of Atlanta, but how does that translate? What does that mean, and what will your candidacy and your governorship mean to people in rural Georgia, people who live on farms and in small communities?
Well, the progress and prosperity of Atlanta didn't happen accidentally. We have an IBM building because Charlie Loudermilk went to school with the vice president of IBM, and I sat down with Charlie Loudermilk and we brought him in here when IBM had not decided where to locate. And we got him to promise that he would locate in the central city on a mass transit stop. Now, when I heard that there was a plant going into Hawkinsville, and I knew the chairman of the board of that plant, I got on the phone and I talked to him about bringing that plant into Hawkinsville. I made a visit to Maryland and sat down with the CEO of Martin Marietta about putting a plant in Americus. I have called my friends in various industries and talked to them about specific communities and giving them the reasons why they should locate in a small Georgia city, that we can offer them a good workforce that will give a good, hard day's work for a good dollar paid, and that we can promise them a high level of productivity from a dedicated workforce. And I think people don't do business with cities. They do business with people. And I'll be the kind of governor that will be offering the services of the governor's office and representing the people of Georgia and the people of small cities in Georgia as we attempt to bring business to those cities.
Isn't it really your orientation to forget about average working folks and only worry about dealing or hobnobbing or working with big business and the corporate types of industry?
Well, let me say that in order to help the people who need money, you have to get together with people who have money. But frankly, I'm much more comfortable in a small church in Thomasville, or I have picked up garbage with the garbage workers of Atlanta. I have helped pave streets and run a jackhammer, a bulldozer, working on construction sites. And I enjoy the task of good, hard-working people. But to help hard-working people, you've got to hobnob with some of these folk who are pushing paper and making decisions. Now, I'm not very comfortable in that, but that's what has to be done. And if that's what has to be done to get new business in Georgia and to help generate jobs, that's what I'll do. The other thing, though, is that we've got to help the business in Georgia export their goods abroad. We've got to help the new businesses that are being formed around Georgia State and the University of Georgia and Georgia Tech to begin to have the capital that's necessary to let them put their ideas into business. One such idea that came out of the Advanced Technology Development Center in Georgia Tech is now creating about 400 jobs in Swainsboro, and there's a factory there producing laptop computers that were invented at Georgia Tech, but are being made by the citizens of Burke County.
Let me go to another primary concern of people in the state of Georgia, and that's crime and the scourge of drugs. What is your solution to dealing with the crime problem, dealing with the drug problem in Georgia?
Well, I think to deal with the crime problem in Georgia, you've got to have a well-coordinated effort on the part of the entire law enforcement community. You can't fight crime city by city, county by county. There's got to be a total statewide approach that coordinates the GBI, the local police forces, the state patrol, and, if necessary, the National Guard. But there's got to be a total commitment of the law enforcement community to go to war on drugs. At the same time, there's got to be the kind of message to our children that helps them to know that they are somebody, that they are children of God, that their bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit, and that they should not put anything in their bodies that would abuse their bodies any more than they would pour water on their VCRs or put sand in the carburetors of their trucks and automobiles. They know how to protect their material things because they know the value of their material things. Somebody has to tell them and teach them the value of their own minds and their own souls.
I guess the other fundamental question, though, is What about enforcement? What about the death penalty? Do you support the death penalty? And what about prison overcrowding and the fact that we don't have enough prisons?
Well, thank goodness Governor Joe Frank Harris in his last year is building new prisons, and we will have new prisons coming online. But we have to have enough prisons to keep in jail those people who need to be detained. And people who plague on our society with drugs need to be put in jail. Now, in terms of the death penalty, I think that some of these people, and I've been to so many police funerals and so many heinous crimes that I've witnessed, the kind of thing that we never saw before. I can see that in some instances the death penalty may be called for. But we have to understand that the death penalty isn't going to ever be a complete answer. And we've got to fight crime, starting off, keeping some of those young people who end up in crime in school. If we can keep people in school, we can keep them out of jail. And so while we have jails for those who are out of school and who are lost, we've got to also have an extra special effort to keep our young men and women in school where they can be productive citizens.
What do you have to say about welfare and the burden of welfare in the state? It seems to be out of control. Is there anything that can be done to break the cycle of welfare dependency?
Well, you've got to break the cycle of welfare dependency, and the best way to do that is to see to it that the coming generations get an adequate education. We've also demonstrated that you can educate welfare mothers and help them to become tax-paying citizens. We've had very successful programs that help welfare mothers become teacher aides and get their college degrees and get off welfare and become a part of the workforce. I think we've got to get every citizen an opportunity to earn a living and to be a full-fledged participating taxpayer in our society.
Very good. I guess the other question that a lot of people have is you had a reputation as mayor for traveling a lot, constantly being out of town. And I guess the concern is that you're going to continue to do that. My question is, will you continue to receive speaking fees? Will you take, last year I believe it was $108,000 in speaking fees, if you are the governor of Georgia?
Well, let me say, I'm going to see to it that everything that needs to be done for the state of Georgia is done. That's my first priority, and nothing is going to interfere with that. I will occasionally make a speech, but I don't make speeches for money. I make speeches because I think the needs and the interest of the citizens of Georgia can be served also by those speeches.
Very good. Let me ask one other question. You were quoted recently as saying that you were basically going to be in favor of raising taxes as governor. What do we have to expect with you as governor in terms of the tax burden of the citizens of Georgia?
Well, that's a misquote. I say that I am the one candidate that can probably avoid a tax increase because I'm the one candidate that can bring about the necessary economic growth and economic development to generate the jobs and put new taxpayers in the workforce so that we have more people paying the burden of taxes, not increasing the burden on those homeowners that already are paying too much in taxes.
Terrific. Let me just ask you if you have an opportunity today here in Macon to say to the voters, why should they vote for Andy Young for governor?
I think that voters who want to move Georgia forward, to help make Georgia a leader in the 21st century, should vote for me because I have the most experience. I have demonstrated that I'm able to run a government, and I have in spite of the fact that I'm perhaps the oldest candidate, I think I've got more energy and experience than any of the others.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You say leave off the show and get interested.
Okay, no, we will look better that way. Okay. Ms. Young, thanks for being with us today. Your husband's running for governor, and I just want to ask again, I know you've answered this question in a number of places today, but what's Andrew Young like, and why do you think, or why would you explain to the voters of Georgia, why would he be a good governor?
Well, Andrew is a very warm and caring person, very hard-working individual. He has a tremendous amount of experience, broad contacts. He's very diligent in anything that he does. He wants to do it very well, and I think that he would make an excellent governor.
Terrific. What about question of abortion? It's something that people are deeply concerned about. It's a controversial issue since the Webster decision. What's Mayor Young's position on abortion?
Well, he feels that that as a man that he can't make that decision. He will never have the opportunity to make that decision, and he feels that the woman should have the right to make that choice for herself. We had teenage daughters when I became pregnant, and we decided that we would not abort. But each woman has to make that decision for herself, and I respect that right.
And so you agree with that position?
Personally, I'm opposed to abortion for myself, but I respect the right of each woman to make that decision for herself.
I see. Let me ask another question. People are deeply concerned about crime, and I believe recently Mayor Young has said, after opposing the death penalty, that he felt like it was something that would be appropriate in certain situations. Do you agree with his position on the death penalty?
Well, Andrew has agonized over this, and he will be the person that will become governor of this state. And I promise you one thing, that he will implement the laws of the state of Georgia with a great deal of fervor, and he will represent this state well.
But you didn't seem to answer that question, Ms. Young.
Well, I think that's a personal question, and it's my personal beliefs may sometimes differ, but I won't be governing the state.
Okay, terrific. Let me ask you one other question. What do you feel are the kind of most important issues that you, as the wife of a governor, if Andrew Young is elected, what are the most important issues that you would be working on? What would you devote yourself to?
Well, I will continue to do the things that I've been concerned about. I'm a teacher. I've been very concerned about education, about child care, about women's issues, about the concerns of the unemployed, the homeless. There are many things that I've been involved with, primarily education. I'm on the Georgia Alliance for Public Education, which is concerned about education statewide. And so that will certainly be one of the most important areas that I will continue to work with.
One of the things that people have criticized the mayor about is foreign travel. Many people have said he spent more time in the third world than he did in Atlanta, and that he really was not tending to the affairs of the city, but instead he was off gallivanting around the world. How do you justify that? Do you think he's going to continue to be that kind of a public official if he's governor?
Well, I say thank goodness that Andrew did travel, because it attracted jobs to the city of Atlanta, and not only to the within the city limits, but in the metropolitan area, and even attracted businesses throughout Georgia because of the contacts that he made. He is a very good manager. That's why things have worked as well as they have in the city of Atlanta, and we expect him to continue that in the governor's office.
A lot of people see him as a big city mayor, and you as someone who lives in a big city like Atlanta. To the farmers in South Georgia, why Andy Young? How would he understand their problems and concerns, and what can he do for rural Georgia?
Well, you have to understand that Andrew's first pastorate was in South Georgia, in Thomasville. Two of our children were born there. I grew up in a small town, rural area in the South. We have related to people who live in rural areas, and when he was in Congress, he was very sensitive to their needs because of this experience, and he was able to, for example, get funds for the peanut subsidy for farmers at that time. And you know, he has a good listening ear, and he hears the concerns of people, and then he works to help to resolve those problems.
Ms. Young, a lot of people say, and this is a difficult question, that really Georgia is not ready for a black governor. Maybe a black mayor, but not a black governor. What do you say to those people?
Well, I say that the people of Georgia have demonstrated that it's an insult to even ask the question, because they've demonstrated that they can vote for people regardless of their background or regardless of their color. And I think we have moved beyond that.
Okay. One last question I wanted to ask is, how would you compare your husband and his candidacy to the other candidates? We have Zell Miller, who's lieutenant governor, and Lauren McDonald, I think it's Lauren or Bubba, and then we have Roy Barnes. How would you compare those candidates, and what would you have to say about why he's better than the other three candidates running for governor?
Well, frankly, I don't feel there's any comparison. I think he has more experience. He has more worldwide contacts. He works harder than any man that I have ever known, and he has the ability to produce. He's not just a visionary, but he's one who is very practical in working to make his dreams come true. And the experience on the local, state, national, and international level, there's simply no comparison.
Well, what would you say then about Zell Miller or Roy Barnes or Bubba McDonald? What is your feeling about those candidates?
Well, I just say, you know, these are fine men, and they've done a fine job where they are. Perhaps they need to continue.
You're better at it than Andrew. All right, let's look at that for a minute.